mindsets really, really matter because they are what set us up for learning. And I don't know any leader or any organization that doesn't hope and want their employees to be engaged, to have high morale, and be learning and therefore innovating the better, healthy aspects of their culture.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Managing with Mind and Heart podcast. I am your host for today, Ethan Nash, and thanks for listening in. Folks, today we have a guest on the podcast, somebody that's been on the podcast multiple times before. And so back by popular request, bringing Hana Butler. Hana, welcome back.
Hey, nice to be here, Ethan.
Yeah. Hana's a colleague of ours, a team member of ours. She's a terrific consultant, coach, and just all around awesome person. But Hana, just for those that haven't been following the plot, why don't you remind everybody who you are and whatever else you want to share?
Okay, yeah. I've been part of the Nash team now. Gosh, time just keeps going. I think since 2018.
So,
2018, 2019. So been quite a journey and parallel alongside of you. So that's been really cool. I keep myself pretty busy with all the dynamic, amazing work we do with coaching, executive teamwork, lots of trainings on leadership skills. And in the meantime, I don't manage employees, but I manage two tiny little humans who really like to push my buttons and challenge all the things that I know how to do. So that's what my life is all about.
yeah, awesome. Well, I know, Hana, you won't say this yourself because you're a humble person, but Hana's really good at what she does. Like, really, really good. I just want to say that for the record. So it's always fun when you can come on the podcast. In fact, I don't know if you and I have had a conversation on the podcast before. I know you and Mike have spoke a couple times, but
That is true. So every day is a new day here. I like it.
awesome. Well, I know that today we're going to talk a bit about this concept, this idea, this whatever it is called a growth mindset. And of course, the term growth mindset is widespread at this point, although I'm not so sure that everybody fully gets what it is and what it isn't. So in this episode, it's going to be a real kind of quick masterclass on the growth mindset, and Hana is going to be our guide for this. So, Hana, let me just start by asking you, since you spent a lot of time digging into this idea of a growth mindset, how do you define a growth mindset? That's probably the best place to start.
Always a good place to start. This work has been happening now for decades, and attribution where it's worthy. Carol Dweck really is one who coined this term and brought it to life way back in the 80s, and looking at children and what made some children more successful than others, especially when looking at in the academic setting. And so when we're looking at the basic definitions in general, she looked at two different mindsets, growth mindset and then fixed mindset. The growth mindset, it's this idea that we can change, that our skills and our potential is malleable and changeable and can be learned. Our fixed mindset is more around this feeling and belief that we are who we are and what we are, and that we're born with certain talents or innate skills, and that can't change. I want to point out there's a little bit of differentiation that sometimes people tend to put this false definition of growth mindset that it just means try harder and anything's possible. And that's not actually what we're talking about here. It really is around how do we access learning through not just teaching skills, but what comes before that in our brains and sets us up for learning. So we can't just try harder and be able to slam dunk a basketball, right? It's there really is stuff that comes before that. So this has been going on now for decades. We've seen this come more and more to life when we're looking at leadership in organizations. So individuals can have a fixed or growth mindset in specific domains of their life. They're not going to be set that way as a person. That's also something to clarify. I'm not a fixed mindset person, and yet as we're building our house here, I have always struggled with math. And when my husband asked me to read the tape measure, my brain goes immediately to, I don't know how to do that. And I don't want to do it. And yet I can have a growth mindset in other aspects of my life, learning how to cook or neuroscience, anything like that. So no one is set like this, but we're going to have different domains and different areas that will bring up a fixed or growth mindset. Organizations also will have a fixed or growth mindset in specific domains. And more than ever, we know that for organizations to be healthy and successful, we don't need to just address the skills and the behaviors they're doing, but we also have to be looking at what are the mindsets that they have around learning. So I'll leave it at that for right now, but that was a lot.
No, that was a really good introduction. And, this idea that you spoke to, Hana, just about, it's not black and white. It's not that somebody has a fixed mindset or has a growth mindset. And this was a new concept or realization for me. Although once I learned this, it seemed pretty intuitive because I recognized that I considered myself a growth mindset person, yet there are certain domains where it's just like I catch myself saying, well, that's just how I am. That's how I'll always be, or that's just not something I'm good at. And so I think that's important to remember for anybody and everybody. It's not either, but it's both and at different times. Um, where where do these different mindsets come from when we're looking at the growth mindset and the fixed mindset?
Yeah.
How do these get formed?
Oh, great question. I think this is really an important piece also is to recognize that it isn't good or bad, not or black and white. And if we think about what's the focus in each of these mindsets, a fixed mindset is a goal and a focus for self-protection. And if we think about this idea that we are fixed, as that we come into the world with certain innate abilities, that I was going to be good at reading tape measures or math or whatever, that fixed mindset is all about keeping me from rejection, humiliation, and even shame. Because in the fixed mindset, if I take a risk and make a mistake, it's not just about a behavior I did, it's about who I am as a person.
Mhm.
And that's really stressful. And of course, it shuts down our brains to learning because we're about self preservation. Now, again,
Mm.
that has served our purposes through evolution, right? If we don't want to be stepping onto a busy street thinking about, oh, how can I turn this way and not that way, right? So it has a purpose. Now, the focus of a growth mindset, again, is more oriented towards learning. And in this place, mistakes are just part of the process. My brain becomes more oriented on strategy towards achieving my self interest
Mm.
versus just out of self protection. So it requires some sense of safety, right, within the group or an environment. But it is something that we can bring attention to and shift in the moment. Just like you said, when you learn to recognize this, we can ask ourselves, is this useful to have a fixed mindset right now or not so useful? And how could I shift to a growth mindset?
Hmm. And so when we're thinking about, we'll take growth mindset. So we're thinking about a growth mindset. Why? And I mean, this sounds like maybe a silly question, but I think it's important to explore. Like, why does it matter that we have a growth mindset or work to cultivate a growth mindset in more areas, more domains in our life? And I'm interested both, the potential results or outcomes of cultivating a growth mindset at both the individual level that you spoke to. So for me personally, as well as at the organizational level. For example, at Nash Consulting. Like what benefits would we hope to derive from cultivating
Yes.
mindsets?
And this is the heart of it all right here. Why does it matter? Well, mindsets really, really matter because they are what set us up for learning. And I don't know any leader or any organization that doesn't hope and want their employees to be engaged, to have high morale, and be learning and therefore innovating towards creating that better line, the better product, the better healthy aspects of their culture. When we have that growth mindset, we start practicing certain habits, and we'll talk about the habits hopefully later today, that again achieve this overall healthy outcome for everybody.
Hmm.
But why do mindsets matter? Well, because when we talk about this in our training, when we're looking at emotional intelligence or these things we call adaptive skills, right? My ability to know what's going on in me, what's going on in you, and then make mutually beneficial choices. That requires both internal work and external work. And I can't just, I can listen to you for quite a while practicing some good behaviors, but if I don't do the internal work on the story I've made up about you, it's not going to be very sustainable, right? Our relationship may not progress to that ultimate place of engagement or creation that we're hoping for. So, looking at mindset, we're hoping to find a way to create some how do we notice when we're in a fixed mindset and then be able to shift into the growth mindset so that we know we're coming from a place of curiosity versus judgment or fear.
Okay. So let's go there for a moment there. What are the signs that someone is in a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? Again, both at an individual level or an organizational level. I'll let you
Yeah,
take that where you want to go.
right. This is, yeah, so great looking at how does this show up? I mean, again, if I asked ourselves right now and our listeners just to think about where is somewhere in your life that you have a fixed mindset.
Hmm.
We all have those places that we tend to avoid, things we don't like. And how does that show up? Well, it shows up at work, uh, where I may procrastinate on certain projects because there's a risk of failure, that I'm afraid of failure. I don't see failure as an opportunity. Instead of seeking out feedback, we're going to see employees, leaders, or organizations avoid feedback because feedback isn't about the behavior, it's about the person. And again, it becomes a scary thing rather than an opportunity.
Hmm.
When we have a fixed mindset, we become what we call it's a culture of knowers. And this used to be Microsoft back in the day, where it was kind of what they call the culture of genius. Everyone needs to have the right answer all the time. And when they brought in new leadership, we turned more from a culture of knowers to a culture of learners.
Hmm.
Or in Brene Brown's words, we say, I'm here to get it right, not to be right.
Hmm.
When we're in that fixed mindset, you see people trying to perform for a sense of status out of fear of rejection or the loss of that status. It's vying for power rather than collaboration, a lot more isolation and siloing, whether individually or departmentally. And looking at a lot of organizations that we work with, those are often the times where we get brought in and asked to help. What do we do about this? It's like, well, part of what we need to do is help shift that mindset around what does learning look like here? How do we address these things?
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned this a moment ago, but I want to get to some of the habits of a growth mindset. So we've talked about, hey, what is a growth mindset? What's a fixed mindset? Where do these mindsets come from? Why it matters? Some signs of a growth mindset. Now, to get practical, what are the habits?
Yeah, so let's start with one of the coolest things that I think is more on the cutting edge work with growth mindset. As I said, this has been going on for decades. But most recently, we're really looking at the research around the art of reappraisal.
Hmm.
Or, in a really simple term, if you take one thing away from today, the meta habit of the growth mindset is to just notice and shift. So we're going to notice. What are we noticing? Well, I don't know about you, Ethan, but stress is pretty common all day, every day in my life. And what does stress feel like? Well, stress usually evokes some kind of chemical reaction in our brain and then a physiological response. My heart rate tends to go up. Maybe my palms get a little sweaty. It's hard to focus. And that's my body in this state of arousal or a state of readiness.
Hmm.
because I'm thinking there's a saber-toothed tiger behind me, or I have a deadline. Our brain can't really differentiate between either of those. It still creates the same sensation. How we interpret that sensation is one of the most powerful things that we can look at in shifting our mindsets. So when we think about feeling that sensation and noticing the stressor, we can ask ourselves, is it really a saber-toothed tiger, right? Is it really going to be absolutely detrimental to me if I mess up XYZ? And framing it in towards how can I use this stress to enhance my performance, to motivate me, to tell my body, oh, hey, you have an opportunity to get on stage next week to do a keynote speech, which, by the way, I do. And instead of letting it terrify me and overwhelm me to where I just want to curl up into a fetal position, I continually keep having to reappraise the stimulus. Okay, yeah, I'm feeling all the feels. I'm feeling nervous, I'm feeling anxious, and I'm feeling excitement. And how can I use that to like light a fire under my butt so that I show up really confident, and prepared? So it's an art of reframing the stress, because we're always in stress, and figuring out how can we use that to enhance our performance rather than push us into that place of a fixed mindset and fear.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So if I'm connecting the dots here in my own mind, it's, you know, the growth mindset and how appraisal, reappraisal, reframing connects to that is we experience because we're going through a situation, we have a hard task that we know we need to do, we have a keynote we have to give, we have a hard conversation we have to have with somebody, we have a tape measure we have to figure out to use, right? And we experience physiologically stress, right? Arousal. And a fixed mindset would look like framing that stress as something's bad here. It's a sign that I'm not going to be able to do well at this or I'm going to
Yes.
fail at this. But the reappraisal might be, hey, you know what? This stress that I'm experiencing, that's actually a sign I care a lot. And actually, that's a sign that I can probably use this increased state of arousal to bring more energy to the task. And
Exactly.
that's more of the growth mindset side of the reappraisal. Is that a fair?
Beautiful summary.
Mhm.
I'll just throw in another term. So this was defined by Carol Dweck, and it's called addressing the effort belief.
Hmm.
And our bodies and our brains are going to have, most of us, a default mode that when we sense stress and that something would require effort of us,
Mhm.
we're going to put it in a negative bucket.
Mm.
If we think about the purpose of this, is that biologically, our bodies and our brains are constantly trying to preserve and conserve energy.
Mm.
So if something is going to require effort or courage to run that marathon, to go have that hard conversation, to go have put on that presentation, we have to bring consciousness to addressing the effort belief. And yeah, reappraising, oh, okay, I recognize that this is hard and I can do it.
Yeah. And I also think that there's a reappraisal that comes with a growth mindset in a different way. And what I mean by that is we experience a failure or setback, right? Say I have this keynote. I do the keynote, it doesn't go well for whatever reason, and I am now experiencing the
Yes.
pain of that failure,
Yes.
right? And so, how do I appraise that failure? Do I appraise it as that means I'm not good at this and I'm so bad and I'm a failure?
Yeah.
Or can I reappraise that as what did I learn from this situation that I can do differently next time? And this is why self compassion is tied
Mhm.
into having a growth mindset. And I know that Kristen Neff's research at the University of Texas in Austin has studied self compassion and its relation to a growth mindset. Carol Dweck has done research on this as well, which is self compassion, growth mindset go hand in hand. When I go through a failure and I can say, hey, this is part of the human experience to go through a failure, And you know what? This hurts and I'm going to experience those feelings fully. But you know what? I can actually grow from this, right? That's how we actually start to make the change we need to make. And they do find that people that practice self compassion are more likely and more able to get into a growth mindset and are actually more likely to make the changes and improvements they want to make. So I just wanted to put that concept out there as what I consider a key piece here.
Absolutely. And there's been lots of data and research on this. So not only from the self-compassion point, but David Newborn and Carol Dweck did a study about defensiveness versus remediation. They took a bunch of students in a college and gave them a test. It was really hard for everyone. Nobody did well. And they were looking at, what do you do when you fail? And what do you do before the second try? Well, no surprise, all of them felt like crap. Just like you said, it doesn't feel good. It feels like a threat in our brain to our sense of status, lots of things in there. And all of the students wanted to find a way to refill their self-esteem bucket. But what they saw was there was a split. And again, mindset comes into here. I think self-compassion matters. The kids who had more of what we call the fixed mindset, they tended to look down on everybody else and look around the room and say, well, at least I did better than those suckers, right? They found anybody else who got a lower score and compared themselves and then utilized the looking down to help repair their self-esteem. And again, when a fixed mindset, there's not a differentiation between who they are and what they did. So of course, we would go into that protective strategy. The kids with the growth mindset looked around and said, who did better than me? How did they do that? And nobody's getting an A in here. I wonder what we could do to improve it. So again, mistakes are part of the process. And another word we can call the A fog, right? Another freaking opportunity for growth. But I really don't want to skip over the fact that failure and messing up and not being perfect, quote unquote, hurts. And it's what we choose to do with that stress that really matters. And that key meta habit that we're focusing on here is all about noticing when we feel that reaction to the stress and asking ourselves, okay, how can I just say I'm not good at this yet? That's the big takeaway for the meta habit here, to notice, then shift into that growth mindset. And we can add the word yet. And I don't know how to read a tape measure yet. And it's it just opens the gateway in the brain and then allows us to explore further what we can do to improve that.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a beautiful place to end it. Just a quick episode today. I'm sure I know there's a lot more to talk about on this concept, and you're just overflowing with knowledge in this area. So perhaps another time we'll dig in deeper. But Hana, I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing some wisdom.
Yeah, great to be here. And yeah, if we have another time in the future, we can look into the 3 habits of the growth mindset and how organizations can apply those.
I like it. A cliffhanger. Great. Well, hey, everybody, thanks for listening.
All right.
See you next time.
Thanks, Ethan.
Hey, folks, wait. Don't go yet. Please stay with me for 1 second here. I want to let you know about a couple cool little goodies that we have available for you. If you dig this podcast, you will probably also dig our Managing with Mind and Heart newsletter. This is a monthly newsletter where we share articles that we write about, how to thrive as a manager, how to lead teams that are characterized by high morale, engagement, psychological safety, care and respect, collaboration, and high performance. You can sign up for this newsletter by texting the word leading to the number 66866. Additionally, you can go to our website and sign up for the newsletter there. Our website is www.nashconsulting.com. And of course, if you're not already aware, we have our cornerstone program for leaders and managers, and it is called Managing with Mind and Heart. Go figure. This program is something that we often bring into organizations to work with all their leaders on helping them get aligned and singing off the same sheet of music with best practice management skills and behaviors. We've brought this to hundreds of organizations at this point with really good results. And if you are not able or inclined to bring our program in-house, twice a year in the spring and in the fall, we offer this 6-day Managing with Mind and Heart leadership development program online for anybody that would like to sign up and join us. To learn more about this online course and to register, you can go to our website. Once again, that's nashconsulting.com. Or send us an email at contact@nashconsulting.com. All right, that's all. That's it. See you later. Bye.